Particular story, the ANC in Tshwane is putting pressure on the council speaker to convene an urgent meeting to elect a new mayor. This following the resignation of Randall Williams. A legal opinion suggests the city should accept his original resignation letter, which said he resigned with immediate effect. Williams retracted that letter and submitted another one, which gave his last day as the 28th of February. Let's continue now our conversation with ANC Tshwane Secretary George Matjila. George, thank you very much for indulging us there as we were hearing just an update on the rebuild project in Parliament. But if we had to get back to where we left off, Peter Sutton was insisting that the first resignation letter would stand because the Speaker had not yet accepted and addressed the council. So what exactly happened between then? Because this was last week when we had him on our platform and he stated that. What happened between then? Had the Speaker perhaps gotten one opinion and then this is a second opinion that was received?
Well, I think it has always been very clear in terms of what should be done in accordance with the law of South Africa. The first letter is the letter that is legally binding, is the letter that is recognized by law. So that's where we are. Peter Sutton would have proceeded, held a mayoral committee where certain decisions were made and so forth. Well, in terms of the law, those decisions are standing until they are challenged in a court of law. So we'll be checking as the ANC as to what are those decisions that might have been taken at that particular mayoral committee. If they are that serious, we'll have to obviously contact the courts to rescind those decisions that they would have been taken.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then insofar as the Speaker is concerned, you want the Speaker to convene a meeting so that you can elect a mayor as soon as possible?
Well, it's very important because the mayor plays a very key or critical role. Remember, we are now in February, approaching March, and a budget report must be presented in council. I mean, an adjustment budget. So the mayor has that responsibility of coordinating that particular role and present the report, because outside the adjusted budget, it means council will not be able to discharge its responsibility, that of providing basic services like your water, electricity, and other related matters. Well, maybe in Tshwane for the past 2 years or so, there have not been services. So it would not matter that much, because even when there was the executive, they were not doing anything. Hence, we would want to see change in Tshwane so that our people are able to get back to their original lives where they were able to get services from the municipality.
Mm-hmm. And then as the ANC, are you looking to field a candidate? Or we could see something that happened similar to that of Johannesburg, where you speak to other smaller parties and perhaps produce a different name to that of the ANC or even the EFF?
Well, the ANC is not going to be a spectator in that process. Remember, we are the majority party. Of the 110 wards that are there in the city, the ANC has 70 wards and 5 proportional representation. So we are the biggest. We'll be guided by the provincial task team in terms of what becomes their view and so forth. If we are to field a mayor from a smaller party, it's fine. But for us, what matters most is competency of that particular individual who will be at the helm of the city, because our people have not been receiving basic services. So we need a person who will be able to make sure that critical services are reintroduced in the city.
Mm-hmm. Chief, among the reasons for Mr. Williams' resignation was the need to stabilize the city. That's what he said in his resignation letter. But there was a great concern around that 10 billion, that there clearly is no stability here and no mechanisms to track any irregular expenditure, because many are still wondering how the amount accumulated to 10 billion. And then it became such a surprise once the Auditor General brought it up, and constantly on many platforms the former mayor would go on to state that it was the CFO. What in your view was the real problem there? can it be an individual, such as the CFO, who is singled out, or here even the city manager, who is in fact the link to council, also should be blamed for perhaps passing the buck or just sleeping on the job, allowing the CFO to do whatever it is they claim the CFO did?
Remember, the council is in charge of that city. The council appoint the executive mayor with executive powers. Then the council will appoint the city manager, who's the leader of administration. So the executive mayor cannot have an excuse. He's responsible for what happens there, because in between council meetings, the executive mayor is in charge of the municipality. So he can't give excuses. He can't speak of a CFO or a city manager or whoever. He's the one who's running. I mean, if the CFO was doing wrong things, the executive mayor has a responsibility to advise accordingly and ensure that the CFO or the city manager is suspended or is removed, so that he gets proper people who runs the city. He's got those rights, those powers.
So next on the job, just in closing for clarity, next for you to do is to go and establish what decisions were taken by the acting mayor, Mr. Sutton. If they are binding or of significance, you'll be heading to the courts.
Well, that's for sure. Because, you know, the argument of other people is that because there was no mayoral committee, those decisions should not be recognized. But in terms of the law, there's a case study to that regard, which says those decisions will be binding unless challenged in a court of law. So we will check as to the tightness of whatever decision that would have been taken by them. If those decisions are not warranting us to go to court, we'll just leave them, you know, because we'll not waste time, waste resources and so forth, because our focus now is to ensure that the new executive mayor is appointed within a reasonable time. The mayoral committee is there, so that we start discharging the responsibility of council.
All right, George, thank you very much for your time this morning. That was George Matjila. He's the regional secretary in the ANC's Tshwane region. To this story now.